we're showing some of the images in the slide deck, the regular slide deck. We're going to transfer back to that and just look at this for a moment. 3 sites today. You see the Envision downtown and Smithfield Corridor. We're looking at downtown and then a concentrated area because they're just, you've got a half hour for these tours, and so we just wanted to focus you. And then the next one is Uptown, West Oakland and EcoInnovation District, which is many of you are involved in, and we're really happy that you're here today, and you'll be hearing more from the person who's going to be presenting that. And then the Hazelwood and Almono sites. And I just want to say, as we look at all these, that I'm going to let the people that are introducing those actually speak to them for you rather than me give a general. But I will say each one of them are places where we do look at these as strategic actions, ultimately. We are looking at this question of, Almono, 178 acres, which are one of the last sort of mill sites that can be transformed. Uptown, which is an area with a history of disinvestment, which now we're looking forward to change for that, but looking at it through a process of an eco-innovation district. And then downtown, which is at a really critical moment now. It's increased, it's becoming that type of lively downtown that people have wanted to be, and so many of the speakers yesterday spoke to, yet it's decisions that we make now that will change, help us determine whether that happens or not. And so with those 3 projects, the speakers, I think at this point, do we still have introductions, or do I just say their names this time? I think it might be best to, well, I will note that for Almono, we'll have Noah Friedman, who is working with the Perkins and Will team that is working with the partnership, the Almono partnership. And so Noah Friedman is first, and then we're also going to have, for the Eco-Innovation District, Christine Mondor from Evolve, who just happens to be chair of the Planning Commission. And then we have Envision Downtown, which is represented by Blaine Merker, who we're so fortunate to have here, who is now with Gehl Architects, and who the last time I saw was at a conference of tactical urbanism. So exciting to see you here in Pittsburgh. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I was going to make a stump speech about the comprehensive plan, but I will just note that I'm going to do a very soft launch right now, that all of these 3 projects and all of these 3 people, we hope, are very much aligned with the type of work we've been doing to sort of rethink the design section of the comprehensive plan, which is part of the overall work. Given the last day, we have great work to do in terms of projects, but also in conceptual planning as well. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you all. Thanks.
You have the slide advancer?
No, notes.
How you advance?
Great. Do you have a
Yes, I do.
clicker? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to Pittsburgh. My name is Blaine Merker, and I am with Gehl Architects. We are based in Copenhagen and have been active in that city for the last 30 years or so, helping to transform it into a city for people. As you may have guessed by my accent, I'm not Danish, but I lead the San Francisco office I lead the San Francisco office of Gehl. We now have an office in San Francisco and New York, so we are in the Americas, closer to where all these great projects are happening. So what I'm going to do today is actually just talk about downtown as an outsider. I'm from San Francisco, but I'm new to Pittsburgh, so I'm going to kind of share some observations about what I've seen downtown. Can we get the next slide? There we go. So downtown to me, exemplifies some of the things I've heard about Pittsburgh transforming and reinventing itself. And what I have heard is that each time Pittsburgh has had to reinvent itself over the last several decades, it's also repurposed its assets that were part of its past. And so the kind of first transformation more recently that took place was along its rivers. And as industry left the riverfronts, Pittsburgh was able to take back that asset of the riverfront and repurpose it for a new set of priorities, which were human use, a human scale, citizens being able to access the rivers. Now, Pittsburgh is at the cusp of another major transformation. And it's really exciting to hear about all the energy and potential, all of the projects that are in the pipeline, especially downtown. And it is about to repurpose another set of assets. And those are its its urban fabric downtown. It has wonderful historic buildings. It has the public realm that is defined by those buildings and the streets. And one of the things that I think is really, really special about downtown is the kind of human scale that it has and the narrowness of the streets, which in many ways is a drawback in terms of transportation, but it's actually this great asset in terms of the human scale, in terms of the walkability, the block size. So downtown has this potential to be a very human-scaled, compact, walkable district. And look forward to kind of getting into that more as we walk around. So Envision downtown, as I understand it, is the vehicle to try and steer towards making downtown the best thing that it can be in this new iteration of Pittsburgh. And it has some very broad goals. Reading from the charter, they are to reduce congestion and improve efficiency, to increase public safety, convenience, and cleanliness, to enhance accessibility of all transportation modes, and I would say maybe transportation choices to make them available, to strengthen the economy and reinforce downtown's position as Pittsburgh's employment center, to increase resiliency and sustainability, and to overall make the experience of downtown living, working, and visiting a great one. Those are lofty goals, but I think what we need to do now is get very specific. We want to get really specific about what actions and projects those goals translate to. Looking at some of the things going on downtown, I think the opportunity here is to create a place for people, to create that human scale. Pittsburgh's already been experimenting with this, a two-way separated, protected bike lane, which is really wonderful. It's going to allow people 8 to 80 to experience what safe biking feels like. I think that's a transformative experience to feel what safe biking actually feels like in your body. So it's not just hardcore 20-somethings who are very fit and who are going to bike no matter what. It's really people, families, older folks, people in business attire who can get on their bikes and feel comfortable about going to work. But the challenge is it can't just be a 1-mile exemplar. It actually has to connect to work and school and destinations that people go to. So it's really exciting, though, that bike share is coming, that these projects are going to be rolling out around town. There's also the Smithfield Corridor, and it has this amazing density of transit. There's lots and lots of people taking transit. Transit's really well serving downtown. At the same time, it's a narrow corridor. And I've seen a number of buses trying to make a turn and cars having to back up into intersections. So there's obviously physical challenges to making it work. I think there's also challenges in the design of the street. We heard yesterday from Jeff Speck, one of the speakers, about the importance of walking being safe, convenient, interesting, and useful. And I think that's a great lens to look at Smithfield through. What is the experience of walking down Smithfield? What's the experience of waiting for transit? It's a lot of people crowded on the sidewalk. It's not the most hospitable environment. How can we make those necessary activities more enjoyable, more safe, more interesting? In other parts of the city, you have these gems. You have Mellon Square, which actually, coming from San Francisco, feels very familiar to me. It's very much like Union Square, which is also a parking garage with a garden on top. I think this would be a good place to talk about parking, to talk about what is the supply of off-street parking? How is it being used? How is it being utilized? And what's the supply of on-street parking? How is it being used? How is it being priced? What are the trade-offs inherent in choosing to have on-street parking, because you have a really narrow right-of-way in most places downtown. So when you use a lot of that right-of-way for the storage of cars, it actually forecloses or limits other options, other flexibility that you might have for uses of the street. At the same time, I think Market Square is this amazing example of what happens when you really create a place that prioritizes people. And I think a real difference in what I saw at Market Square versus other places in the city is Market Square seems to be about slowing people down. And what we do at Gehl is we quantify public life. We try and look at movement activities versus staying activities. And we'll see that people will always move through cities. They will always be walking if they need to get somewhere. They will stand and wait and be stationary if they have to for transit. But when people choose to be somewhere and be stationary, that's a great indication of a high-quality public life, public realm. The rivers. This is an amazing thing that Pittsburgh has done over the years, is to reclaim its riverfronts. We see kind of different conditions. You know, some are more constrained by automobile infrastructure, some are more opened up. I think this is a great momentum to build on, and now the time is to ask sort of what can be done to go even further, or much further than this? How can these riverfront parks serve more than just an aesthetic function or a sort of traditional park function? How can they serve an ecological function? By being a stormwater treatment, by providing habitat, by providing flood mitigation, and also how can they start to form the infrastructure for a human transport infrastructure, you know, places that connect for people to move through the city. So as this 2-year planning cycle of Envision Downtown sets off, I think the question now that we'll be asking is, what pilot projects, what priorities, what experiments and tests are Pittsburghers going to try next? And I'm looking forward to asking those questions with you as we go out on the tour of downtown today. Thank you.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out this morning. I'm here to talk about Uptown. Probably if you're from Pittsburgh, you've been in Uptown, but as I had a conversation with someone yesterday and they asked, where is Uptown? You might know it by a different identity, because Uptown is a place of many different identities. You might know it as the Bluff. You might know it as Soho. Probably you know it as the Forbes 5th Corridor. Uptown is a place of many identities and has many different types of things in it. On the west side, it has large-scale institutions, Duquesne University, Mercy Hospital, the Console Arena. On the east side, we've got a cluster of low-income housing. But within that housing, there are many interesting things happening, and people are striving there. There's Startup Town. There's the Paramount, I always have to get this right, the Paramount Film Exchange, where there's many different companies starting businesses there. There's also many lofts that are being renovated, schools that are being renovated, many interesting things going on. By the numbers, Uptown has over 150 businesses, artists, and small enterprises. It has over 5,000 undergraduate students and more students that attend the university. And it has over 800 residents, which by comparison doesn't seem like all that much compared to the university students. Despite this diversity, we find that the community isn't all that knitted together, and that's part of our challenge to think about today. Uptown has an interesting place in the city. It's positioned between the downtown and Oakland, our two major financial centers, the second and third largest in the state, but it's often known as a pass-through community. It's bounded by three major highways, and it has over 16 lanes of traffic separating it from the river. So although we're close, we're not accessible. Many people see Uptown, but not as many people stay in Uptown, and that's one of the things that we'd like to change. And perhaps partially because of this, there's been years of disinvestment, resulting in building demolitions, a loss in property values, and a general decline in the quality of life. When businesses are unable to attract people, they're unable to have street activity, they don't survive. There's a general perception of an unsafe environment when this happens. And you get conditions where the most profitable use of a property might actually be as a surface parking lot. And that's another thing that we're going to talk about in our tour today. Uptown has no maintained green space areas, and lacking a buffer between it and the highways ranks one of the highest polluted areas, as marked by bikers who attach air quality sensors onto their bikes as they bike through the city. That's something we need to change as well. But despite these challenges, there is an energy, and Uptown is experiencing growth pressures, which we've heard from other speakers is something that we need to be attendant to. We've established an interim planning overlay district, better known as an iPod, and that will allow for a safeguarding of existing residential and community uses while we engage in a more profound and deeper community planning process. The iPod will protect architectural assets, it will allow for quality development, and allow the community to define what that means to them. There are plans afoot to improve the public transit system, which could result in bringing more people and more businesses to the district and a transit-oriented development. And there's even talk of a TRID, or Transit Revitalization Investment District, that allows for value capture from investments to be placed back into the community with programs, investment in places, and processes. These are all things that we're going to discuss the potential of within Uptown on our trip. So, if you're in my group, I'm excited to have you with us. We're also going to present more about the name of this group. This group is called the EcoInnovation District. Very intentional that it's called that. We're going to discuss more about an eco-district planning process and the methods and the types of things, the indicators and the metrics that eco-districts examine. But we're also going to talk a little bit about innovation districts. And innovation districts and the work that Bruce Katz is doing at the Brookings also have a set of indicators and ideas behind them, and we're going to look at how those two can come together and create a new model of thinking about our communities. So I look forward to you all joining, and we'll see you on the bus.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. My name is Noah Friedman. I'm from Perkins & Will in the San Francisco office, and we were fortunate enough to be hired to work with the partnership, Almono partnership, and coming up with what we're calling an implementation plan for for that site. I guess so. Here you have it on the screen. One thing that I want to point out in our work to date is we're trying to transform the name of the project. Almono is a name that was given to this site, but quite honestly, we're really talking about Hazelwood. It's a neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and it's a neighborhood that's been in Pittsburgh for quite a long time, even before this was a steel mill. That's where it got its name. There were orchards here. And it was a much different neighborhood than it is today. It's a much different neighborhood than it was when there was a steel mill. So it's possible for us to rethink of this place as something totally different and totally new. And what's really exciting about this project and the site and the connection to the Eco-Innovation District and downtown is that it's really a connected part of a city. And this city is a really special city. I'm very happy and pleased to be here and that I've been invited to work in this city. Pittsburgh holds a special place in most everybody's heart in this country. It really is the center of innovation and a working class innovation, innovation for everybody. And that's what we're really talking about today. So I'm glad that we were invited to participate in the P4 conference. There's two really exciting things about that. One is the 4 Ps are exactly what are focused and is our mission for and hopes and goals for this project. And then also because we're actually in the process of making this happen. I mentioned we're working on an implementation plan. So thank you for inviting all these people to help us make this happen. All of the things that we talked about yesterday, the exciting ideas that are happening and projects that are happening around the world, what we're asking you to do today is to help us look at this site and how do we practically achieve world-class sustainability. We're really looking to make this the most sustainable neighborhood in the world. How do we get that done? We need to make sure we get this done. As you see, the existing Hazelwood neighborhood is has the bones of a great neighborhood. It's been there for over a century, but it's gone through some hard times recently related to the steel mill closing and that change. Obviously, as I mentioned, the steel mill coming had a huge impact. It totally changed that neighborhood. And now the steel mill leaving has changed it again. But what is that post-industrial future for the site? It's so critical that we keep on reminding ourselves that this is not the Almono site. This is part of a neighborhood, the Hazelwood neighborhood. And how do we integrate that, and how do we make sure that what happens on the site, the successes, both economically and in terms of sustainability, how does that translate into this existing neighborhood that surrounds the site? Oops. The site itself has some pretty amazing assets. This is where we like to start, is the built and natural assets. Obviously, a waterfront site, the most valuable part of the waterfront is a waterfront site is the waterfront itself, so the river. But there's also some built assets that we're looking to repurpose and bring into a sort of a new model of 21st century innovation. These are authentic places that we quite honestly could not tear down and rebuild and recreate that same authenticity. So this is really about the place. How do we create an authentic place that really rises to the same authenticity and success that the places in downtown have in other parts of Pittsburgh? And we're really excited about that. These are the two buildings on site that are going to be retained. The steel mill itself is about a quarter-mile long building, so pretty impressive. And it was a place where innovation was happening when steel was being fabricated here. And it's a place where innovation is going to happen again. There's a lot of excitement and interest in this building because of its authenticity and because of the bones of it. It's got a great structure, and this quarter-mile long building it's hard to find a building like that. And then the roundhouse building. Train roundhouse buildings are amazing, and this is just a wonderful asset for the site. And we think, and there's some pretty exciting stuff already happening there, but we think that this could be a centerpiece and a place where people could gather. And really, what we want to do is capture this and really build on the authenticity of this building. This is a very conceptual drawing of what we're thinking about and looking at this project and the site and the extension of Hazelwood. One of the big ideas that we're proposing in terms of urban design is a concentration of activity around major public spaces. And you can see here that we're proposing a new park plaza for this area, and that this plaza would actually be the center of activity for the waterfront area. The nice thing about intensifying certain areas and focusing energy and vibrancy in certain areas is it leaves other areas available for lower intensity uses, but places where things are actually getting made. We want to make sure that this site still carries forward that idea of making things, innovating, and really getting things done. So what I'm asking you guys to do today on our tour and when we get back together is really help us to figure out how do we get this done, and can you bring some of your ideas and models that you've had success with around the world here to Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you.